What's up, YouTube? It's Matthew here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to interview Taelonn, and Taelonn's going to speak about his um, just his business, his wholesaling business, talk about his first deal and ways that you can relate to his story that you can apply to your wholesaling real estate business. So if you all don't mind, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and I'll put all the links to Taelonn's social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube down below. He's trying to grow his presence on social media, so be sure to support Taelonn. So to start off with, Taelonn, how's your day going?
It's good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity just to kind of share my story a bit. Day's going well.
For sure, for sure. All right. Well, to start off with, I like to ask people I interview first, like, how did you first come across real estate or specifically wholesaling? How did it all start?
Yeah, so back in college, actually, probably my freshman year, probably similar to everybody else, I stumbled across YouTube videos. I went down the rabbit hole of YouTube University. I was just probably looking for side hustles, and real estate popped up. Bigger names as far as like Brent Daniels. I know I followed Max Maxwell a lot back in the day. And just went down the rabbit hole of just learning. That was 4 years ago. As I did back then 4 years ago, don't work today, but I was obviously able to grow with the market a bit and kind of stick with it.
Gotcha. Okay, 4 years. So 2018 is when you started.
2018, yep.
Okay, perfect. And what were you doing during that time before? Were you like in school or were you working? What was the situation?
I was doing both. I just started my freshman year of college. I started some sales rep job where I was just outbound calling all day. I was a telemarketer basically. But when I was doing telemarketing, I had time to set my computer up next to me and I would just be watching videos as phone calls are coming in and hanging up. And then I just kind of as I was going through school, I took the little money I had going through school and just to kind of try some different marketing methods until eventually I was luckily enough to stumble across my first deal my first year of college. So
Okay. Well, yeah, well, we'll get more into that first deal. So I guess around the time you first started, you were a freshman in college. How old were you?
I was 18. So my
Okay.
first, yeah. So my first contract when I first turned 18 when I was legally allowed to. So before then,
Okay.
before then I was just doing a bunch of learning because you can't sign anything yet. And since I turned 18, I was able to.
Congrats. Okay. So yeah, because I know a lot of beginner wholesalers that have questions around that, like the age and different things like that. And hey, you started right when you were legal to do it. So congrats to that. So I guess right now you're 22.
22. Yep.
Okay.
Turning 23 here in 2 months.
Okay, okay. All right. So I guess you were in school, you were working, and you were doing telemarketing, you were saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so to get your first deal, was it through cold calling also? Were you able to transfer those skills into wholesaling?
I was down the road. I
Hmm.
was, but in the beginning, like I said, 4 years ago, what I was doing then wouldn't work now. It's more expensive. But I actually started out with PPC. I had built my out, got my first deal off my first few deals off of Google Ads. Um,
Okay.
yeah, 4 years ago. Back then it was a lot cheaper. That's
Right.
I was doing Facebook ads and Google Ads. I think it was like $15 a day I had on them. And then
Really?
yeah, so then I got my first deal through PPC, and I eventually
Okay.
transitioned to some of the other marketing methods.
Okay, okay. Well, yeah, let's get right into your first deal. Yeah. Let's just break it down into, I guess, the different pillars. So how'd you find this lead? And I know you mentioned it PPC, but you can get more into it. And then um, what was the situation like with the seller? Why were they looking to sell? And the condition of the property and other things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my first seller actually had two properties, and I was able to wholesale both of those to the same buyer. Um,
Okay.
so his situation is his wife had got divorced, an unfortunate situation. But when they got divorced, both of them moved out of state, I guess, to get away from each other, whatever the situation may have been. But they left both of their properties behind. So now they have two owners, both out of state on the property. And so they were just looking to get rid of them. He owned a fourplex that he was selling out in Cleveland, Ohio. And then he had a single family home him and his wife stayed in Lakewood, Ohio. And honestly, he was just ready to get rid of both of them. The fourplex was kind of falling into bad shape. It was vacant for a while. the single family home was in good shape. And if you know anything about Lakewood, it's a great area for rental properties, or not rental properties, but first time home buyers. And so I was just kind of having the conversation with them, being personal, explaining how I can help. I wasn't I didn't know much back then, so I wasn't even able to be predatory because I didn't know how to. So
Hmm.
I was just being as human as possible. Like, I understand your situation. Look, I'm new, but I am interested in investing in some properties. Here's how I can help. Does that work for you? And then it worked. I got him an offer. He got what he needed. Luckily, they were still cordial enough for both of them signed off on the paperwork since they were married. And then I found a buyer and we closed on it on the first deal.
Oh, okay, okay. Congrats. So you said these properties were in Cleveland. So do you live around these areas?
Yeah, I'm in Columbus, Ohio now. I do some
Okay.
virtual um, real estate now that I was able to kind of graduate into. But yeah, back
Right.
I was just in my back market, anything in Ohio that I could, because I was going out to every property back then because I thought that's what you're
Okay.
supposed to do. Yeah, I was driving to them, I was shaking hands because that's I thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Right,
But
right. I mean, I think it's important actually, especially when you're first getting started. And I know, yes, you can get started, with virtual wholesaling, but I think it's still um, imperative that you get that contact, you see the property, you understand, body language with the seller or with the buyers and stuff and other things like that.
yeah,
Um, Another thing with this deal, I know, so it's two properties. They had a divorce and they were just trying to get rid of these two properties. So what would you say, I guess, what were they looking for the property wise, and what were you able to get them under contract for?
yeah. So the fourplex was actually it was in bad shape. It hadn't been rented for years. That one was prior to their divorce. They just kind of let it sit and go vacant for a while. So that one was in bad shape, and they just wanted to get rid of it. So I think the ARV on that was probably closer to 70 or 80 over in the Cleveland market. Um, and I think I'd offer them 20, and he hung up on me the first time. And
Wow.
yeah, and then I called him back, and I gave it like a week because I didn't want to keep bothering him. So I gave it a week. I called him back, and I told him to give me a number because to see what we can make work. And I think he gave me like 40. And I know you're not supposed to do this now, but I told him let's just split the difference at 30. So we split the difference at 30, and then that was good for the fourplex. And then we got it under contract at 30. And then for the single family home over in Lakewood, we actually got that one under contract very close to retail. I think this was 4 years ago. So the property values went up a lot. Luckily, I found a buyer that knew that they were going to go up. So I think back then it was probably worth like 130, 140, like on market if you were to list it. And I got it under contract for like 120. Um,
Mm.
and back then I'm like, well, it's a discount. It might not be much, but it's a discount. Maybe somebody will buy it. I probably wouldn't do that today. But luckily, the buyer I found, he knew they were kind of gentrifying the area. They were bringing in new properties. There was new builds everywhere. So he knew that that property value was going to go up, and he ended up buying and reselling it. I saw it on the market a year later for I think it was triple what I sold it to him for. So
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So, okay, so the quadplex, you were able to get it under at 30,000,
yeah,
and then the second one, 120, you said.
yep,
All right, and I think it's important to highlight too that especially as a beginner, you experience someone hanging up on you, but you didn't let that deter you, right?
yeah.
You continue calling that seller. I mean, what would you say to a beginner who's getting these type of calls that people are just hanging up on them? What would you say to them? How do they push through that?
Yeah, set your expectations up front. You're
Hmm.
gonna get told no way more than you're gonna get told yes. It's just more like your mindset. You got to be able to hustle and grind for what you want. Set your expectations realistically going into it. Like, hey, listen, I'm gonna get cussed out. I'm gonna get hung up on. But eventually, the old saying, every no is closer. It gets you closer to a yes. So it's just kind of having the mindset knowing that you're gonna get a lot of no's, but eventually, you keep consistency, you'll get your yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's key. Yeah, and I think that's what made me, I guess, succeed while I was, all in and wholesaling because I was all like, okay, I know I'm going to get no's, I know I'm going to get rejections. And so when I had those expectations, it didn't hurt as much as
Right.
before, as oh, thinking, oh, in 30 days I'm gonna get my first deal, or in a week I'm gonna get my first deal. But yeah, setting those expectations are key. Okay, and so how did you find your buyer, by the way?
Facebook Market. So I just put it out there on Facebook Market, and he was actually a big time buyer in the Cleveland Market, which which is, I mean, you find good buyers on Facebook Market, but typically they're usually the one and done type of buyers. They buy a property and they won't buy another one for a while. But he was actually a big buyer in the market, and he had a VA actually reach out to me and get some details on the
Mm,
properties. And he called me personally after his VA spoke to me and said he wanted both of them. So I walked both properties with him and shook his hand like I was shaking everybody's hand back in the day. And um, he wanted both of them. He could tell I was new as soon as he met me. He was like, "Oh, this is your first deal, huh?" Which looking back on, I know he kind of took advantage of the fact that it was my first deal, but
mm,
he did properties. And he had a little bit more experience in the game, so uh,
okay. Hey, I mean that's a Facebook Marketplace is a great place to find buyers, and hey, I mean that's just part of the learning experience, just dealing with investors. Of course, they're seasoned, they can spot out who's new, who's not, and other things like that. And sometimes, you can prepare as much as you can, but it's just part of the learning lessons. That buyer probably experienced that early on in his investing journey.
yeah.
So um, yeah. So with the properties itself, what were you able to sell them at the to the cash buyer for?
Yeah, so I sold them both. He ended up just cutting me a check for 15,000 outside of closing because we ended up messing everything up with closing. The title group we chose didn't really handle wholesale assignments, and it was his title group because I guess he had relationships with them. But I ended up selling both. I think I sold the fourplex to him for. I got in a contract for 30. I sold it to him for 34, and then he wanted to buy the single family home for. I think it was 131 or 132, somewhere
Right, right, right.
4 years ago. But then we ended up messing it up, and seller didn't want to pay his closing costs, and he didn't want to pay the closing costs. So it all ended up coming out of my assignment. Ended up he just yeah, $15,000 check at the end of closing. So it all worked out.
Right.
But it was a horror story from the beginning because I was nervous the whole way.
Okay.
He was good enough to take care of me outside of closing.
Okay. Hey, congrats. I mean, your second deal, it's it's always nerve-wracking
Yeah,
because, it kind of keeps you up at night. You're all like, I hope everything turns out. And when you find out it doesn't turn out, and that gives you more stress, and you're just stressing like for weeks.
crazy.
But yeah, I think after you get through those deals, you can kind of handle the ups and downs of this business. But yeah, congrats on that first deal though. But
Yeah.
so let's say so you say you started learning about wholesaling. How long was it until you actually started taking action in wholesaling?
Um, so I would say I started doing a lot of learning. My it was January 2018, so going into my first school year, which would have started in August. So from January to August, I was just watching videos. I was telling myself I needed to know more, sure as everybody else does. I needed to do this. I put all these scenarios in my head of things that I needed to know before I started. And then when I started, I didn't know anything at all anyway. So January to August is probably when I was just in that like analysis for analysis, people say, where I was just trying to load myself with information. And then I want to say, I actually got my first deal pretty quickly with PPC, which is a good proof of concept for me. So I closed on my first deal right before Christmas. So from August to
Mm,
it closed, I think it closed like December 1st when I got my check. So
okay, okay, got you. So you had, I guess, a good amount of learning, and then, but when you actually started taking action, it was roughly around maybe 2 to 3 months until you
yeah,
got your first deal. But yeah, I mean that's a great turnaround. I would say that's definitely average, like as in the turnaround when people actually start taking consistent action,
yeah,
you see the results maybe 60 to 90 days later.
yeah,
So I think people who are watching this just know that time frame that yes, you can get your first deal in a week or two, but most
yeah.
likely it'll take longer than what most people expect.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so you got your deal, and then from there on now until now, how has your business evolved? And how's your wholesale operation now?
Yeah, so when I got my first deal, it was really good proof of concept for me. But it was right around Christmas time, so I pretty much blew my first 15. I felt like I was a big baller. I was 18. I had a $15,000 check. I was giving money away to my parents, my mom, and I was just giving it away. Um, so I actually struggled, went back into the process where I was broke again, and then I had to build myself back up. Um, but eventually, I started getting some deals coming in, and honestly, I've been doing it for about 4.5 years now, going on 5. For the first like 2.5 years, it was so inconsistent. I was like, does this even work? Because I would get a deal and then I would go 4 months without getting another deal,
Mm,
or 5 months, and I would just stuck at the threshold if I would close like a few deals every few months. And I'm like, does this work? Can I actually make a business out of this? But eventually, as I kind of grew and just kind of grew with the market and started doing a little bit more learning while taking action, not just learning, but taking action while I'm learning, I eventually found some consistency. I switched over to a lot of outbound marketing, where I do some funnels now. As far as text messaging, if I don't reach you by text, I'll call you. If I don't reach you by call, I'll mail you. It's just kind of going down the funnel of cheapest to most expensive. And eventually, I'll get a hold of you and you tell me no, or maybe we'll work something out. But it was just finding a system that works for me. I was able to put some VAs in place for to free up some of my time to help work on the business. And now I'm able to do some consistent deals. But it took a lot of time. I know a lot of people probably go through that.
right.
Also, you do one deal and then you probably do what I do. You blow it because it came wholesaling money. It comes pretty easy, and then you go 4 months without a deal, and it's like,
Yeah.
did I get lucky? Did this?
Right, right. No, no, that's good to point out because I think a lot of people who are watching this probably experience the inconsistency of wholesaling, especially early on.
Yeah.
I know I experienced it because I closed my first deal and it was like a few months, and then I closed my second deal. And then when I started, I think just being consistent with my marketing and having a budget every month and saying I'm going to allocate this amount every month for, early on I was doing direct mail like my second year. That's when I saw more consistency, like every month closing deals.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, how was it, I guess, right now, how's your business set up? I know you talked about VAs and whatnot, but what's the process now?
Yeah, so I have a team of there's three of us. I have a VA from the Philippines, Venezuela, and then one over in Jamaica actually.
Hmm.
So they're all over the place. I one of them, Patricia, she handles just text messaging and outbound marketing. So she just kind of handles the messages coming in. She responds to them, and she just sets appointments with me. Because what I learned, kind of going through the process, is I was almost or putting too many systems in place, where I wasn't being personal enough with people that were contacting me. I know people say it all the time, but it really is true that you have to build relationships with people you want to do business with. If they don't trust you, if they don't even know you, they're not going to call you back. They're going to ignore your phone calls, your text messages. Um, so I have VAs, and they pretty much set appointments with me. I'm still in the process of where I don't want to fire myself just yet,
Hmm.
because it's hard to trust people to kind of take over your business. But I'm still growing. But yeah, so I have a cold caller. He uh, he cold calls for me 8 hours a day. Then they all just kind of put him in the same funnel in my CRM, and then we set appointments. We do phone calls, and then my last VA does disposition. So they handle the cash buyers, they market the property for me, and then negotiate the deals so we can get top dollar for it. Whether or not I'm graduating to fixing and flipping, so whether or not it's a good fix and flip, or wholesale, or whether it's just better to wholesale it off. So it's kind of the
Okay.
decisions there. And yeah.
Okay, okay. So that's interesting. I definitely like the setup. So would you say right now most of your deals are they virtual?
Yeah. Majority of them are virtual. I still market to my backdoor market. So I'm still in Ohio, which is where I'm
Hmm.
based. But I am majority of my deals are virtual. I'm in Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, a few other states, a little bit of New York. Try to stay in. Yeah, I don't target the lower property ARV
Oh,
um,
okay, yeah, yeah.
areas. Just I don't want to compete against Zillow when we buy homes, we buy ugly houses. So I stay in the smaller markets, and I help as much people as I can out there.
Okay, got you. And so I know you were talking about just different strategies. What would you say your percentage of I guess, like this year or last year are wholesales versus other types of strategy, or is it still like mostly wholesaling?
It's mostly wholesaling, but coming here into the new year, I want it to be mostly wholesaling, not necessarily flipping them, but
Mm.
wholesaling. 'Cause a lot of people we work with, we'll go out to the property and the property's it's not in the best shape. But a lot of times there'll just be a lot of trash in it. And so we'll
Mm.
trash it out. Maybe you'll paint it, put some carpet in it, and put it back on the market. Um, but I think the reason why I want to switch into wholesaling is it was earlier this year. I had a property at wholesale. I think I made it was like 2 grand off of it. And then I looked and it wasn't even like 15 days later, I see the guy has a property on market for a pending offer of like 50,000 more than what I sold it to him for. And I'm like, this guy's making 50. And if I would have just waited 2 weeks, I could have made 50 off of it. And he
Mm.
didn't do anything to it. He just put it back on the market. He didn't even take better pictures. He used the pictures I sent him for the property.
Oh wow, dang.
Just put it back on the market. And I'm like, that's when they clicked for me. It was like, I can't just wholesale every property. I have to start buying some and I have to start just putting back on the market, reaching a
Oh,
larger audience.
okay, okay. So have you recently done a hotel deal this year, or you can kind of dive into that and the process with that? And was it virtual and other things like that?
Yeah, I just wholesaled a property that closed 2 weeks ago, out in Detroit, Michigan. So I found a buyer out there, and it was a rental property for him, or for her. She was out of state. She renovated the property completely. So because she was going to live in it, but she ended up putting a tenant in there. So she renovated the property completely. The tenant stopped paying rent though, so it was a situation where she was out of state. She didn't have the time to manage the property. She was busy with her work, and I ended up shooting her a text message and asking her if she wanted to sell the property. And we ended up coming to a deal on it, and it was a good deal. She didn't need the money, so it was more or less like just take care of it for me and do what you need to do with it. She understood the business. She was a escrow officer in her past life or past work experience, so she knew everything about the business. She knew what wholesaling was. She knew what everything was. She was just basically, if you can take care of this, if you can solve my problem, and we build some good rapport, then I'll sell it to you for cheap.
Mm.
Put it back on the market. And got a we I just bought it and I just used the same picture she sent me because I was virtual. Well, actually, I sent the guy out there. I hired like a I don't really call them bird dogs. I just
Mm.
looked. I found on Craigslist a guy. He went out and took pictures for me. um, Found a local realtor and just put it back on the market, and we got retail for it.
Oh, nice. So I guess when you're doing a hotel deal and you're purchasing these properties, I mean, have you ever come across a property that you can't necessarily buy for cash? And how do you close on it? Or do you finance or do you just have cash to purchase them?
Yeah, no. Even if I do have cash, I wouldn't. I don't necessarily like using it because it ties it up. And
Right.
yeah, the first hotel property I ever did, I had to use everything I ever earned in wholesaling just to. So I tied it up. I stopped marketing. I stopped reaching out because I had
Mm,
the property. So I don't do that anymore. But a lot of people say use hard money, but it's also kind of hard to when you work in these areas where the property ARV is a little lower. A
hmm.
lot of hard money lenders, they want you to have 50K minimum loan balance.
Right.
So what I did is I started utilizing. People say use private money, but if you don't have those relationships, it's kind of hard to build. Especially, I was an 18-year-old kid, 17 or 19, 20. Nobody really wanted to lend me money. So
Hmm.
I started taking out personal and business revolving lines of credit
Hmm.
with a bunch of different banks, and I would just combine them, and then I would use that as a down payment to get the hard money if I needed hard money, or I would just use the revolving line of credit, and I would purchase a property and then obviously pay it back the revolving line of credit after we close. But I just combined funds from all over the place from a bunch of different banks that would maybe 5 grand or 7 grand or 10 grand or whatever it may be, and I would just combine them.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, because I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people would want to know like how are you able to hotel a deal, like purchase them, if they're starting out and they don't necessarily have the cash for that. And so yeah, I think after they do a few wholesale deals, they can use the, lines of credits from different banks and do that. So most of these properties, like you were saying, they're in lower class areas that you're dealing with.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, lower class, and the property ARVs are typically less than 200.
Less than
So,
200. Okay.
yeah,
So, I mean, did you ever have to hotel a deal that was maybe like like over 100 grand or something, and you just did the same thing using line of credits
Yeah,
and other things like that.
yeah. There was a in Memphis, Tennessee. This one closed maybe a year ago, so not as recent. But the I think the property was probably worth like 300 actually. And then I think we bought it for like it was the ARV was like 300. I think I got it for like 180. Um, and then what I did is I hard money. You need a down payment for it. So what I did is I took revolving lines of credit from all these different banks. I've even pulled like lines of credit out of my stocks and just kind of put them in a pool of a bank. And then I'll use that revolving line of credit as a down payment for hard money because I didn't want to tie up any funds. So I use that little pool of money that I got from revolving line of credit. And then I'd use that as a down payment for hard money. And then hard money would finance the repairs and the purchase price and everything like that. So just utilizing everybody else's money to try to put a deal together.
Makes sense. Okay. And so with these properties, like the one in Memphis, did you have to do any repairs or was it just like a cleanup and then you put it back on market?
Yeah, so I haven't dove into really any of the big fix and flips yet.
Okay.
I want to here coming into the new year. But so far, the biggest rehab I've done, and there was one in Memphis where I trashed it out. She was a hoarder. She just had a bunch of stuff everywhere. So we trashed it out. I put new carpet and I painted it. And then that was it. And the only reason why we put new carpet is because she had like 11, 12 cats. So there was a
Mm,
bad smell in there.
yeah.
Um, so we just made it smell nice, took the carpet out, repainted the drywall. And it still wasn't pretty, but it was better than what I bought it at. So we put it back on the market and got a buyer for it. Actually, somebody wanted to live into it and fix it up as they go.
Oh, okay. How much were you able to sell that one for?
I bought it for 180. We put like 5K into it with the carpet and paint, and because it was a larger house, and we ended up selling it for like 230.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's a decent
So,
profit. So with I guess with finding people like to move the trash and to paint, put new carpet, I mean, what's your process with that? How'd you find the person in Memphis?
yeah, Facebook groups. I would
Mm,
reach out on Facebook groups, and it's honestly other wholesalers that are getting started, and they just kind of want to be a part of it. Other investors that maybe know teams in the area. But I would just put it in Facebook or Facebook groups. Like, I've got this property out here. Anybody want to help me trash it out? I'll pay you some money. And then people will respond. And got a crew out there, and it was like actually a high school coach took his football team out there, and they went and trash it out for us. And
oh, really?
yeah,
Wow.
and
That's interesting. Okay. Well, I guess I think a lot of people can relate to your story, just being young and just the different things that you're doing in your business and whatnot. So I guess with all of this, what is your end goal with real estate? I mean, what are you trying to accomplish through all of this?
yeah. So I want to graduate into just holding some properties. I bought my first rental, like maybe it's like 9 months back now.
Okay.
So I want to go through the process everybody goes through. You start off wholesaling, you fix and flip, you buy some rentals, maybe you start building eventually. But I want to go down that rabbit hole of real estate. But my goal is honestly just to buy my time back for the future. I don't want to be reliant on trading my time for money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a super big dream of having 100 employees in an office. I just want to buy my time back in the future where I'm able to live life where I feel comfortably and also happy. I value my happiness a lot more than I value money.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my goal is just to buy back some of my time in the future and have a team that makes me happy.
Makes sense, makes sense. Yeah, and I definitely see you doing that for sure. Um, yeah, with the different strategies that you're doing. So, with I guess the rental property, is it in your area or is it like virtual also?
Yeah, so I actually bought 3 rental properties just this year because it was a goal of mine to get some rental properties.
Yeah.
I ended up selling 2 of them right away, so they actually ended up being more like fix and flips. Because one of them the tenant didn't want to pay rent. I was like, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm new,
Mm,
so he's like, because the rent was very low when I bought it, so I was like, hey, we're gonna have to raise rent on you a bit. He's like, no, I won't pay. I won't pay. So I just told it to a guy that was going to evict him because I didn't want to deal with it. So it's like my first rental. I don't want to go through the process of
right.
evicting.
No, no, it makes sense. Yeah.
Um, and then the other one, the tenant just moved out right away, and I didn't really know the process of getting a tenant in there. And I didn't want it to sit vacant for 4 months because I didn't know what I was doing, so I ended up just selling that one too. But then the last one I have is actually over in Dayton, Ohio, and that one's been good for me. The rents are still a little low for the area, but there are great tenants out there, and they pay rent on time, so I haven't really bothered them. And then it was turnkey, so the tenants were in there 10 years beforehand. And then when I bought it, they signed another 2 year lease, so they're looking to stay for a while. And then I'm happy with it, and hopefully they're happy as well. I check
Awesome.
once in a while and make sure everything's going good, and haven't had to do too many repairs. So,
Okay. And so with these properties, did you go on through traditional financing, like a 30-year fix? And
yeah. So the other two I pretty much showed them as fix and flips, so I didn't do that. And then this one I have over in Dayton, I just bought cash, so I didn't want to put a loan on it. But I will go conventional in the future when I get some areas where I want to buy rentals in some nice areas. But the one I bought in Dayton, the ARV is like 70. I think I bought it for like 10, so it was a good
you
deal.
bought it for 10,000.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. How much are you getting for rent?
the rent is 600, so it's not the
Dang, that's
highest,
crazy.
but the cash flow on it is obviously great. Since
Right, right. I mean, no complaints. So you got it for 10 grand. So you got it through just like your regular marketing techniques, I'm guessing.
text message, yeah, just
Okay.
honestly just building relationships because the lady that sold me the rental, her husband had passed away, and he was actually the guy taking care of the rental. So it just kind of it she inherited it by default because that's kind of how it was when they signed the deed. You know, your spouse gets the property if anything were to happen to you. So she inherited the property from her spouse right away after he passed. She never took care of rental in her life. And she called me and she gave me the number because I don't try to take advantage of people. Like if I know you can get more for your property, I'll tell you that, and you tell me what's best for you. So I told her you can get more for this one market. I'd be a cash buyer. I'd buy it from you because she gave me the number 10. It's like I'd buy it from you at 10, but you can get more. She's like, no, I just want to get rid of it. You've been really nice to me. You seem professional. I'll give it to you for 10 if you can just take care of it. And we can close pretty quick. So close quick, got it for 10, and then the tenants were turnkey. They stayed in there. So that was a good purchase for me. It's been a good experience.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, congrats. That's a crazy cash flow deal. And yeah, even if, you know, you said that the market and the rent is a little bit lower than market rent, I mean, you're still, banking a lot. But that's crazy. I don't even think here in the area I live in Tennessee, I can find a property for 10 grand, but
Yeah.
that's crazy. All right. And I know you say you started wholesaling and everything in college. I mean, did you continue on with your college education? Are you still
Yeah, I got my degree. I don't use it, but
right?
nonetheless, I have it. I have a degree in entrepreneurship and marketing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have my bachelor's. Not that I use it, but it's there. I can
Right,
take it.
right. Got you. So you were in school and doing wholesaling at the same time.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Got you. Because yeah, I know a lot of people have questions like, oh, can I work a full-time job and do wholesaling, or can I be in school and do wholesaling? How were you able to balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, and there are sacrifices because you only have so much time in a day. But it was just time management. I would make sure I got my schoolwork done. I set my priorities. So I wasn't the best student. I won't tell you it was, but I got through it. I did what I needed to do to pass. So I just set my priorities. I would spend so much time on school. I would shut it down for the day, and then I would solely focus on business and what I wanted to do because what I wanted to build in my future. I'd focus on that, and then I would spend time with friends and family. If I needed or when I could. But there are some sacrifices you have to make when you want to juggle so many things at once. Um, but yeah, I just put my head down really. Like I just focused on what I wanted to build. Did what I need to do in school because I still wanted to get my degree. First generation college student for my family, so
Mm,
just wanted to get my degree, and then it's just time management. If you want it bad enough, you'll find time. Wake up early. Maybe you have to go a little sleep a little later. Find time to kind of stay healthy. I still went to the gym every day.
mm.
So it's just time management. If you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think yeah, what you were saying, prioritize the different things that you want. And like, yeah, I mean, school, it's good, it's important and whatnot, but hey, if you just need to get a passing grade in this class, do what you have to do and collect the bag and your business and
Yeah,
whatnot. But
that was my mindset.
right, right, exactly. Okay. And just to I guess close out this interview, I know I have a lot of beginners watching this video and they're, you know, beginning with wholesaling and they're wanting to know how to get their first deal. I mean, what would you say, what can they do in order for them to get their first deal?
Yeah, honestly, and I feel like I'm not saying anything brand new here, but it's fine a wholesaler that's kind of been in the market and maybe work underneath them and kind of see what's working. Because the marketing I do in Ohio, I don't do the same marketing in Michigan or Tennessee because they're different markets. The way you approach them has to be different. So I would find a market that you want to be in, find a wholesaler in that market, and then kind of learn what they're doing. If you don't want to go through that path of underneath somebody and just want to get out there and start hustling, make phone calls.
Hmm.
It's free if you can. You get the lists off the assessor sites. And you can script change them on truepeoplesearch.com and just start making phone calls. You'll get a lot of no's, like we spoke about in the beginning. Um, but again, it's kind of what we spoke about in this interview is you got to want it bad enough. And if you make enough phone calls, eventually you'll get somebody to pick up the phone and listen to what you have to say.
Hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, that's really great advice. And I like that it's practical. Like you actually gave them, okay, you can do this, pull this, list, cold call, because it's mostly, most cost effective marketing. Do this and that, you're going to get no. And yeah, prioritize, know what you want and work at it. So yeah, I think a lot of people are going to appreciate those suggestions. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on to this channel. I know a lot of people are going to find value from this video. Once again, you all check out Taelonn's social media handles down below. He's trying to grow his social media presence, so make sure you support him. All right. Thank you all. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, and I'll talk to you all later.
Peace. Thanks.